Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Yapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedya Brahminam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhinamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So if I remember correctly, we're in the section on aids to meditation. Is that right? And what verse are we on?
We're on 427.
427. We have more texts if someone needs them.
Should I start?
Please.
Stita prajño yatirayam yasadanandamashnute brahmanyeva vilinatma nirvikaro vinishkriyah. That person of steady wisdom, having merged themselves in Brahman, enjoying everlasting bliss without modification or activity.
So I think we mentioned this last week, the same idea. So what is the mark? I think that's the section we're in, the marks of the person of steady wisdom. So here he says, just like in Gita, it says, not only is it a person who's cast off all the desires of the mind, but is satisfied in the self by self. So we have the image here of, I'll bring it so the Zoomies can see it. Hanuman embracing Lord Rama. Can you all see it in the Zoom? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So Hanuman is the mind. Very powerful, can fly here and there, carry a mountain. Mind is incredibly powerful. And in fact, in the science of yoga, we have all sorts of practices to develop what we call siddhis, powers to fly through the air, to astral project, to be smaller than the atom, all sorts of things. All of these, it's like going to the gym and working out. It's not a mark of self-realization. It's a mark of various practices of the mind. Mind is incredibly powerful. But it's no accident that the mind is represented by a monkey. So if you go to India and you maybe go to a temple where there are monkeys and they're tame because people feed them and they're sacred. Such is the mind. Where does the monkey of the mind find rest? Rama here is the self. The mind finds its peace. It finds its rest. It finds its fulfillment in the embrace of the soul. So let's review some very important points of this. Have I got enough right? Yes. We use the word yoga, which comes from the root yud, which means to join. Some people may think that it means I'm going to join myself to God. If that inspires you to practice, that's a perfectly good definition. But I have news for you. I am Atma Brahma, as the Mahavakya says. What's that mean?
This self is Brahman.
This self is Brahman, not joined to Brahman, not going to get to Brahman eventually. Where do you live, Jim? I live in Oakland. What are you up to today? Oh, I'm traveling to Oakland. But you live in Oakland. So don't bother me. Don't bother me. I'm going to Oakland. But you live in Oakland. No. That's nonsense. You are it. So what's my problem? My problem is my stupid mind. What is the problem with my stupid mind? Because of avidya, ignorance, avarana shakti. I have three ideas which cause me to suffer. Vikshepa shakti. I project these ideas. I think I'm a person. I have a goal. And in order to be happy, I have to struggle towards the goal. And that's serious business. People, places, things, and conditions have the power to make me happy. And then, of course, the power to make me unhappy. And that's illusion. That's delusion. That's moha. And its cause is ignorance in my mind. So, what does yoga give us? First, through vairagya, I clear out some of the most afflicting agitations. And when the mind is to some degree sattvic, I start this atma vichara, inquiry into my self nature. And I may have intuitive insights. Oh, yep, I'm that ground of being, I'm the self. Boy, the world still bugs me. Still have to make sure we see the self in and through all the world, turning the volume level down on our reactivity. But one of the marks of the woman of steady wisdom is she has retired into the supreme. She can revel in self. And we have what we call the lip Vedantins. They have read the scriptures, they have an intellectual grasp of it. And then they look at works like Vivekachudamani and say, well, Shankara didn't really write that. Why? Because Shankara in this text talks about samadhi. And they're very nice people, very scholarly. They may even wear the orange cloth. But if you've ever had the great punya to meet a woman or a man of realization, who's a full knower of the Supreme, who has retired into the Supreme, we can feel it when we're around them. The mind is a sense organ. We can feel it. We get what Swamiji used to call a borrowed glory. We get a taste. Which is great because it inspires us to practice. Don't settle for just an intellectual understanding of this world. There's more. And the lip Vedantins will say, samadhi's just a mind state, renounce it. And to some degree, that's true. But so is your suffering. So is your suffering. So if you're going to say samadhi is a mind state, then don't come to me with your problems, because they're not real. And the great value of being able to revel in the self, however shallow your samadhi may be. We talk about the ruthless rule of the mind. The mind will return to the experience that's given it the greatest joy. And I always like to say, thank God, God is the most beloved, or we'd all be in tough shape. Once we can begin to, as the psalmist says, taste and see the goodness of the Lord. Oh, yes. And that same drive that used to drive us into the world now drives us towards the end. and it gets richer and richer. It's infinite. There is no end to bliss. Infinitely new. No end to depth. Next verse.
Dhamma mano shodhitayo rekabhavagahini nirvikalpa cha chinmatra vritti pragneti kathyate stutis susthita sa bhavedasya sthita pragnya sa uchyate. The sort of mental activity which admits only the identity of the self and Brahman, free from all limitations and devoid of duality, which is only concerned with pure knowledge, is called illumination. One who has this steady illumination is known as a man of steady wisdom.
Yes. So here he's using the term Sthita Pragya Purusha, which he's directly borrowed from the second chapter of Gita. The last 18 verses, the second chapter, are the descriptions of the Sthita Pragya Purusha. Purusha means a person. Person of steady wisdom. And I've shared this with many of you. Verse 54, Arjun says, how does the person of steady wisdom walk? How do they talk? Etc. Verse 55 is the first teaching that Krishna gives us. When a person casts off all the desires of the mind, O Martin, and is satisfied in the self, by the self. Someone who has the taste. Brahmanandarasa. The juice of the bliss of Brahman. Then they're said to be Sthita Pragya. Next verse.
Yasya sthitata bhavet pragnya yasyanando nirantarah prapancho vismrita prayah sa jivan mukta ishyate. He who has steady wisdom, who experiences endless bliss, who has forgotten the phenomenal world, he is considered a jivan mukta.
Yes. Jivan Mukta, a person with a liberated personality. Liberated in this very body, in this very life, is free. No inside, no outside. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. All this is verily God. So, of course, the scriptures talk about what happens after we die. Go to Punya Loka, go to Papa Loka, go to Swarga, go to Brahma Loka. What if none of it's true? Has any relative come back to say, oh, yes, it's very true? I might have. We may have faith in it because the scriptures say it. What if it's not true? What if when you die, you're dead? What if this is it? Even if that is what you believe, how can I move through this life with the greatest joy? How can I be free from fear? I was talking with a new person with whom I'm working, and he said, well, I don't like the Vedanta. When I read it, it seems nihilistic. Everything is an illusion. I'm unwilling to give up, meaningful relationship, trying to make the world a better place, service, and the things I enjoy. And my response to him is Vedanta is not nihilistic. It's exactly the opposite. The person in ignorance is like a person at a banquet with a thorn in their throat. Every movement through life is tinged with fear. I'm afraid I'm not going to get what I want. When I get what I want, I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. I'm afraid someone's going to take it away from me. I'm afraid the stock market's going to go down. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. I'm afraid the people I love are going to get sick. I'm afraid loved ones will die. Talking with a friend, he's really quite anxious. His dog is in surgery. He's terribly upset and anxious. These are real. But knowledge allows us to fully enjoy life because we have no illusion. Back in the 80s, my roommate in 1986 was diagnosed with AIDS. Before that, frankly, I think he was in a period of real clinical depression. He lost his job, he put on a lot of weight, he didn't have somebody special in his life. He was pretty shut down. One would think an AIDS diagnosis, now in 1986, that was terminal. Anywhere from 6 months to 2.5 years, and you're dead. You'd think that would depress him further. But it was a great paradox because he began to live fully, perhaps for the first time in his life. It's not a rehearsal. This is it. So he went on the cruise that he always wanted to do. He started to really date. Wasn't worried about what people thought of his body. We were both singers. He finally gave the recital he always wanted to do. Got the damn chairs in the living room recovered, which he wanted to do. All these things. He quit postponing his joy. And there was a magazine that did an interview with him. Artists with AIDS is the story. And one of the things Perry said was, if I had the choice of not learning this lesson of living life fully, or not having AIDS and continuing in the mind state I was in, getting AIDS and dying soon was worth it because of what he learned. He quit holding back. He threw himself fully into life. And a terminal diagnosis is sannyas at gunpoint. So I can remember the last time I picked him up from the hospital, going home to be on hospice. He wanted to go out to Ocean Beach. We drove through Golden Gate Park, and I could see he was enjoying the beauty of the park so fully because he knew it was the last time he'd ever do it. He wasn't going to drive through the park and be in his head. He got out to the ocean and opened the door, and he was pretty frail by then. Feeling the salt breeze off the ocean in San Francisco. If you've ever been out to Ocean Beach, you know, I don't know if it has more ozone than other places, but it's just marvelous. It's a very special experience. So much joy in just being at the ocean. You don't have to be a yogi to learn this lesson, but a yogi does. No fear, no fear, no holding back in life. So the paradox is the sthita prajna purusha, the jivan mukta, is the only one of us who can fully enjoy life. The person identified with ego, and depending on how solid that ego is, again, it's like a person at a banquet with a thorn in their throat. Vedanta is not nihilistic. Now, the person who has samadhi may be seen to not have a zest for going on a cruise or concerts or things like that, because the world just got too little. It's a bigger playground. It is not about giving up joy. Not in the least. In contrast, thinking of another person I'm working with who was at a meeting where people were sharing, did a foolish thing, in my opinion. He started to rehearse his share before he shared. And then all of a sudden he started to think, what are people going to think of my share? Are they going to think I'm arrogant? Are they going to think that I'm stupid? Are they going to, I feel phony and plastic. You know, he was all caught up in paranoid self-observation. He was suffering so much, he got up and left the meeting without sharing in the middle of the meeting. What caused that? Avidya, non-apprehension of his essential nature. Vikshepa Shakti, I think I'm a person and I'm not okay. And I need to get better and I have to work toward it and it's failing again. So I withdraw from life. Sure, none of you have ever done anything like this. All right, next verse.
Dina dhirapi jagarti jagrat arma vivarjitaha bodho nirvasano yasya sajivan mukta ishyate. He who has merged himself in Brahman, yet is alert, but without the characteristics of wakefulness, whose knowledge is free from desire, he is considered a Jivan Mukta.
Yeah. So in Gita, Krishna says, again, in the Stita Pragya Purusha section, the yogi is asleep. So what is day to the yogi is night for others. What is day for others is night for the yogi. I think that's the way it's framed. So the kinds of neediness that ordinary people have. I must have this in order to be happy. It's just not there. The yogi has another playground. It's Atmaramana. Most of the people in the ordinary world have no idea it even exists. And again, he's translated the word kama as desire. I think we can get in a bit of trouble with that. I would prefer to translate it as craving. Preferences will not go away. I used to struggle with this with Swamiji, watching him. He obviously enjoyed, he had preferences. It was very clear. But he had no attachment. There was no kama, there was no craving. It was just joy. And it was gone. One of my favorite stories. Swamiji liked timeliness. And he'd bang on our heads. So, for example, for morning meditation at a camp, 6:30's meditation. At 6:31, the door was locked. None of this, oh, ring the code and come in quietly like I do. Oh. And at this one morning, we would have meditation in one of the classrooms. There's a lot of the people coming to the camp, the participants, we'd have 20, 25 come to meditation. There'd be several hundred who would come to the lectures. So he's there. We're all waiting outside. The door was locked. Swamiji, we can't get in, the door's locked. He sits down on the sidewalk. We all sit down. And he leads us in meditation. A preference, but immediately able to let it go and then do the next thing. That's a jivan. Next verse.
Shanta sansara kalana kalavaanapi nishkala yasya chittam vinishchittam sa jivan mukta ishyate. He whose concern about the world has been still, who has a body consisting of parts yet is without parts, whose mind is free from anxiety, he is considered a jivan mukta.
Now, this doesn't mean we avoid reading the newspaper. Swamiji read the newspaper all the time. He was very informed on current events. But on the global scale, as well as on the individual scale, he basically found people very funny. He laughed a lot at our silliness. He was an incredible mimic. We were doing something stupid. He would mimic us doing it. Everybody would laugh. We'd see our silliness. So it doesn't mean we're not aware of what's going on in the world, but no concern for it anymore. Now, there's nuance here. So, in the early 50s, it might have even been the late 40s. I think it was the early 50s. One of Swamiji's goals used to say, India is now free, now we need to free Indians. So he saw himself as like a modern day Shankara, converting Indians back to Hinduism. The Vedanta, the real teaching of Hinduism, not the real, but the deeper teaching of Hinduism. So he put together a consortium of spiritual leaders in the country who had as their purpose to advise the secular leaders of the country. He was Indira Gandhi's guru. Now, that doesn't mean he approved of her politics. I think the modern day American example, young people may not be aware of him, Billy Graham. He was a famous evangelical preacher, but he was the pastor to presidents, Republican and Democratic, came to him for spiritual advice, not political strategy. It's not the same those days. So, yes, he was aware of politics, very mindful of what was going on, but endeavored to remind people in politics of their deeper values and the deeper values of the culture. That's a good idea in any time and culture. But letting go of the results. What these politicians did with the advice God of them. They will do what they do. And the organization that he founded now 70 years later has become very politically involved, and many people would say it's very right wing. Nothing lasts, nothing stays the same. Who's to say? So there was no concern for the world. I'm having a senior moment. What were the other ideas?
Who has a body consisting of parts, yet is without parts.
Yes, meaning other people see the body of the woman of steady wisdom, but she knows, aham brahmasmi. I am consciousness itself. And not this body with parts. Chidananda Rupam, my form is bliss, consciousness, not 2 arms, 2 legs, etc. Is that all of it, or is there another idea?
Whose mind is free from anxiety.
Yeah. No concern, regret for the past, no worry about the future. Who's out of control in the best sense of that word. They live from a place of intuition. And it may seem like a mistake to the world, but it's more important to trust. Many of us move through life kind of externalizing. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to make a mistake. I want to do it right. I want to do it perfectly. I don't want to make a mistake. Who's ever had that particular demon? Drowned into the tub. Very painful demon. Trust. Trust the fact that you have innate wisdom. If, big if, you silence the raga and the dvesha. I must have it this way. I'll never have it that way. When you have samadrishta, then you can act that intuitive sense. Next verse.
Vartmanepi dehesmin chayavadanuvartini ahantam mamata bhavo jivanmuktasya lakshanam. The absence of the I and mine concepts, even in this body, which persists like a shadow, this is the indication in a Jivan Mukta.
Yes. So that doesn't mean the woman of steady wisdom or the man of steady wisdom has to talk funny. Swamiji would say, I'm going to Chennai next month. Said to me, meet me in Bangalore on Shivaratri. He used I and my language. But on other occasions, he would not. But you and I use language that doesn't describe what we know all the time. You've heard me use this example. Who here has seen a sunset? None of you have seen a sunset. You've seen an earth spin. And you've known that since you were in middle school, probably. But we call it a sunset. But the person of steady wisdom sees the body, mind, intellect like a shadow. It just goes through it. It's allotted prarabdha karma, getting its allotted dose of successes and failures, honor and dishonor, but with no real concern for it. In the middle of summer, my shadow isn't very long. Nobody thinks that. You're hosing the sidewalk. Why are you hosing the sidewalk? Oh, my shadow got dirty. No. I see it, but no concern. Now, this doesn't mean to give up bathing and not to brush your teeth and comb your hair. You do that out of compassion for the rest of us. You treat it like your car, whether you have a Volkswagen or a Porsche. Rotate the tires, take it to the car wash, clean out the inside, check the oil. You care for it because it's a vehicle. And health is the greatest wealth. You do not realize its incredible value until you lose it. But that's different than being identified and attached. I was talking with another young man. How old is he? 34, I think. And he's absolutely having a tizzy. His hair is thinning. Big deal for him. Next verse.
अतीताननुसन्धानं भविष्यदविचारणम् औदासीन्यम् अपि प्राप्ते जीवन्मुक्तस्य लक्षणम्. No thought for the enjoyments of the past, no thought for the future, and indifference even for the present. This is the indication of a Jivan Mukta.
So, this regret for the past, or its opposite, I rehearse the past because of the pleasant experiences. All that's gone. Dream-like. And no concern for the future. That doesn't mean we're not prudent. I love the old Sufi saying, trust God, but tether your camel. You be mindful of things, but there's no need to worry about it. You're going to be taken care of. Your prarabdha will do it. And if your prarabdha is to be a bag lady, no amount of worry will keep it from happening.
What's a bag lady?
Someone who lives on the streets and their possessions
Lots
are in
of
a bag.
bags. I was talking to a guy who owns a shop, and he said his grandmother had owned a shop, and she said, if you've got a problem and there's a solution, why worry? If you've got a problem and there's no solution, why worry?
Very good.
It's like, wow, right?
Very.
A wise woman.
So, the person of steady wisdom lives in the joy and the incredible intensity of the now, with all of its vividness. All of its vividness. Self does not move. I do not move. I am Achalam, unmoving. World just passes by. I watch it. Watch this body act its part in the Leela, the drama of life. Next verse.
गुणदोष विशिष्टेऽस्मिन् स्वभावेन विलक्षणे सर्वत्र समदर्शित्वं जीवन्मुक्तस्य लक्षणम्. Looking everywhere with an equal eye on this world, riddled with elements possessing merit and demerit, characteristically different from the other, this is the indication of a Jivanmukta.
Yes. So it doesn't mean that the person of steady wisdom doesn't see what's going on in life. They're not naive. They may withdraw from life like Ramana Maharshi. Who's that? What's that noise? Huh? But the person of steady wisdom is certainly aware of life. But there's no internal resistance to it of any kind. They see the qualities of mind, they see the doshas, defects. They see goodness. But there's not this quality, deep anger and hatred if it's not right, or this covetousness to have it another way. It's like the boat on the waves. The waves go up and down, but the boat goes with them. Not affected by the swells underneath. Next one.
इष्टानिष्टार्थसम्प्राप्तौ समदर्शितयत्मनि उभयत्राविकारित्वं जीवन्मुक्तस्य लक्षणम्. When confronted with things pleasing or painful, to be unperturbed in both cases by maintaining an equal attitude, this is the indication of a Jivanmukta.
So, understand, some people have the naive notion that if I'm spiritually fit, I'm going to hit all the green lights of life. I'll get what I want. It'll be sweetness and light everywhere. Nothing bad will happen. And my 401k will keep going. I like to think of life as an enormous sine wave. Each of us gets our allotted dose of joys and sorrows, successes and failures, honor and dishonor. health and sickness, all based on guna and karma. But the person of steady wisdom is not attached to the highs and lows of life. Doesn't mean you don't go through them and experience them. Why me, God? Why not you? It is what it is. With the deeply rooted understanding that my happiness, my serenity, my well being is never dependent on external circumstances or the condition of the body. Next one.
Brahmananda rasa swada sakta chitta dayayate anta antarbahi ravijnanam jivan muktasya lakshanam. Constantly engaged in tasting the bliss of Brahman, a sannyasin entertains no distinctions of within and without. This is the indication of a Jivan Mukta.
This wonderful term which I use, this is where I got it. Brahmananda rasa. Rasa means juice. Also means taste, doesn't it?
Swad means taste. So it's Brahmananda Swad, Rasa Swad.
Yes. The essence or the juice of the bliss of Brahman. If the person of steady wisdom has that, things of this world start to take a different priority. What used to be important things, precious objects, become trinkets and bones. Pretty nice. But not what's really important. Next one.
Dehendriyadav kartavye mamaham bhavavarjitah audasinyena yashthiste sa jivan muktas lakshanam. Having no idea of I and mine with regard to the body, sense organs, etc., nor to duties, living with an attitude of indifference, this is the indication of a Jivan Mukta.
Yes. All is mine to use, none is mine to own. Even if the Jivan Mukta is a householder in the world, a business person, owns property, has a bank account, has children, inside they are a sannyasi. Doesn't mean we don't enjoy beauty, nature, art, music, friends. No attach. No attach. Next.
विज्ञात आत्मनो यस्य ब्रह्मभाव श्रुतेर्बलात् भवबन्ध विनिर्मुक्त स जीवन्मुक्त लक्षणः. Deep-rooted knowledge that the self is Brahman, affirmed by the scriptures and free from the bondage of transmigration. This is the indication of a Jivan Mukta.
So it's not only affirmed by the scripture, but it's deeply rooted knowledge based on direct experience. Not the body. Not the mass behind that. Where is happiness? It's my self nature. Brahma Satya. Brahman alone is real. Jagamitya. Phenomenal world. Illusory. Light show. Virtual reality. Ready to look at. But even the worldly happiness is nothing but a taste of yourself. Next one.
देहेन्द्रियेष्वहं भाव इदं भावस्तदन्यके यस्य नो भवत क्वापि स जीवन्मुक्त इष्यते. He who has no ego with regard to body, sense organs, etc., nor the concept of this with regard to other things, he is considered a Jivan Mukta.
Yeah. So no sense of I or mine with the body or any of the objects. And the fundamental understanding that this phenomenal world comes about like a dream. It's a very vivid, very long dream. Whether she's perceiving the world or in meditation, it's the same. It's the same. Next one.
न प्रत्यग् ब्रह्मणो भेदं कदापि भ्रम्य सर्गयोः प्रज्ञया यो विजानाति स जीवन्मुक्तलक्षणः. Through knowledge, he who never distinguishes between the Jiva and Brahman and between the universe and Brahman is indicated as a Jiva Mukta.
So understand it's not like I'm an individual person and Brahman is out there. And through this practice, I am going to become like Brahman. There's a higher self. Right now, I'm all caught up in my lower self. Who sees the phone? I do. That's yourself. You don't get another self. My problem is not that I have the wrong self. My problem is I superimpose on the most present, constant, obvious fact, event, experience in the world. I am all sorts of nonsense. When are you ever not you? My doubt is not that there's something wrong with, well, my doubt is not that I don't exist, but that my existence is flawed. My real doubt is I do not know what the nature of that self is in my mind. That's what causes me to suffer. Once you see it, you never lose it. Anybody here have a crappy day like this week? Did you cease to exist?
No.
Did you know the crapology?
Yeah.
Did you cease shining as the light of awareness?
No.
Yeah. You didn't lose yourself. Oh, Jim, I had an experience of the self, but I lost it. Once you really see it, you can't ever lose it. When are you ever not you? Now inquire into that I. See how marvelous you really are. See that you're not a person. And once you grasp that, moving through this world, when are you ever not you? What are you worried about? You never change. You don't improve. You don't diminish. You don't increase. Just the stuff that you see constantly changes. The phenomenal world, your body, energy, feelings, thoughts, mind states. But you are nitya, eternal. Never anything to worry about. Don't believe me? Look. Okay, we'll end here tonight. What verse are we on for next week?
441.
Om Purnamata Purnamitam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om.